Clutch down, revs up. Pulling to the right. A little bit of wheel spin. What's up, you guys? I feel like I just left you, but we're back. 2024 Hyundai Elantra N, redesigned, refreshed for this model year. Let's go for a drive. Let's see how it stacks up. Most importantly, though, to the competition. Civic SI, GR Corolla, Civic Type-R, GTI. I know some of you guys, yeah, there's a little bit of a rivalry going on there, shall we say. Let's get into it. So, the Elantra N, same direct injected 2-liter inline-4 under the hood, turbo, of course, 6-speed manual. You can get an 8-speed DCT, but if you do that, you got bigger problems. 276 horsepower, 289 pound-feet of torque, which is interesting because I would expect that from like a kind of a smaller hatchback like the GTI. I've driven a couple tuned GTIs, and they have huge torque ramp-ups lower down in the RPM band that peak higher than the Power does. Here is kind of a similar scenario. So throttle response is really good. Of course, it is front-wheel drive. Hyundai has changed how the engine mounts are made up front. So that is apparently to reduce vibrations and increase steering precision. Now, to go along with that, they've also added a reduced friction universal joint in the steering rack. So the Elantra N already gets a rack-mounted electronic power steering system versus the standard Elantra, which gets a column-mounted electric power steering system. So it's got a quicker steering rack as well. The turning radius is actually a little bit bigger here. Some of you guys have said that the 2022 and 23 models had a little bit too much wheel hop. Now, I believe you because I drove a Veloster N in the, well, it was in the wet, but I got a ton of wheel hop in that car, a ton of vibrations, which can be good, but they were not the right kinds of vibrations. So here, it's said to reduce some of those vibrations. Really good steering feel. I feel the tires when they're about to understeer. The torque steer here is not too bad. 289 pound-feet is a lot, but it's not overwhelming by any stretch of the imagination. It does pin me back into these N seats. What other changes do we have? Well, we have to go to the outside to take a look at the Elantra N. Am I gonna wanna look back at this car in a parking lot? So they've redesigned the Elantra N. Largest change, new front bumper, new LED headlights. Previously, the headlight came right up to the hood. Now it's a little bit lower. It makes the hood look longer and a little bit sleeker. Overall, yeah, undoubtedly, this looks a ton better than the previous look. Is it perfect? You know, that's really up to you and whether you like this kind of design language, but we also have some new air ducts channeling air over the front brakes. Of course, the Elantra N has larger brakes over the standard Elantra and wider tires, 245s all the way around. We do get these new 19-inch forged alloy wheels here. Big important thing with those is they shave off 33 pounds of unsprung weight. Huge. So we'll see how that feels when we get inside the car. There's not too much going on here. I like it. There's some edges and there's some good cooling, good functional cooling down there and a lot of sharp edges. And that continues along the side of the car. Of course, we have those kind of geometric shapes along the doors and into the rear of the car and little details like this. You really have to be into the kind of, hey, look at me feeling you get when you walk around an Elantra N. The wing is the exact same for this year. The red stripe goes all the way across. The diffuser is new. The exhaust tips are the same. Giant exhaust tips back here. Couple little fake vents back here. Taillights are largely the same, but the largest changes are happening on the front end. If you look closely here, not the greatest panel gaps here on the hood, just a little bit inconsistent. You can see a large gap here, very small gap there, medium gap there, and as we go along, it gets smaller. That one's really noticeable, especially from the top. It's just, the fitment is not perfect, but overall, quality, good car to look at. It's a really good size in terms of dimensions. The wheelbase here is very slightly shorter than the Honda Civic. That goes for both the SI and the Civic Type-R, but it's quite a bit longer than both the GR Corolla and the Mark 8 GTI. So let's go for a drive. I just want to see how this feels in comparison to those cars, the ones I've driven, and see what you should buy for the money. No wheel spin in the dry. Also, I feel like I could very easily take my hands off the steering wheel during a full throttle pull. Bright red lights on the tack if we're in N mode. So we do have a few driving modes here. We've got one blue button on the left side that just changes our driving mode. Eco, normal, sport. We do have a valve in the exhaust. So in eco and normal, quiet. In sport, it gets louder, but you don't get any exhaust crackles. You do have to hit the other N button on the right side of the steering wheel. You get N mode, which by default limits your traction control. Awesome. It also automatically turns on rev matching. If you don't want that, you have a custom 1 and custom 2 modes. You just hit it one more time, and I've set mine so the adaptive suspension, which the Elantra N also gets, is set to soft. And then my steering's kind of set to sport, the middle setting. We have some exhaust pops, we have some crackles, but it's not too artificial. Way less fake than the Civic Type-R. Civic Type-R literally sounds like you're playing Gran Turismo. Huge complaint, probably my least favorite thing about that car. Now the adaptive suspension here is really good. It's still very much daily drivable, soaks up that dip really well. And I do, like I said, get a ton of feel through the steering, way more feel through the steering than a GTI. Not quite as much as a Civic Type-R. That car still feels a little bit more raw, a little bit more authentic. This is not as hardcore as a GR Corolla or a Civic Type-R, but on the flip side, it's not as, I guess you could say, luxurious as an Integra Type S, not as daily drivable as that car, not as comfortable when you put it in comfort mode, but it's still really comfortable. Way more comfortable than the GR Corolla. Just as a daily, it feels small enough, but because, big crack, the wheelbase isn't too short, I feel like we still have a little bit of stability, but not quite as much mechanical grip as the Type-R. Like I really cannot lean into the throttle as early or as much as I want in certain scenarios when compared to the Integra Type S or Civic Type-R. Those cars, they just give you more and more and more, where this is a little bit more accessible and playful. Now shifter's good, it's fairly notchy, but there's a little bit of a lightness to it. I can't quite put my finger on it. Satisfying, yes, but am I shifting up just to shift down? Not as much as I would be in some of those other cars. The car feels sharp, it feels connected. You can lean on those tires, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. Dip it into a corner, let off the throttle. You could feel the rear end kind of swing around a little bit. It's playful, it's fun, it gives back. It's more theatrical to drive at lower speeds than the GR Corolla, and I think that's something a lot of buyers just are looking for. Maybe the enthusiast that never played Gran Turismo, you know, and that's what the Type-R has working against it. There's so many expectations to live up to there that you get in and it has crazy fake engine noises. You're like, what? This is Gran Turismo. I played and loved Gran Turismo. I didn't want that in my car. You don't have to be a hero behind the wheel to have fun, right? If you're on a cruise with your friends, you don't have to be at the front of the pack with your buddies not able to keep up with you, to enjoy the Elantra N. It gives back a ton. It gives back good feedback, audible feedback. And yes, you are able to pump in some fake noises, but you're also able to turn that off completely. Rev matching's no problem. There, that was a moment. Little bit of throttle coming out of the corner, and it just pushes a little bit, and that torque comes on really quick. Brake feels good too. Black leather and suede on the interior. Sunroof, yes. Everything's in the right position, but overall ergonomics are great. I feel like I'm sitting low down. Infotainment's easy to use. It's not the nicest to look at, but neither is the Civic Type-R or Integra Type S. I prefer the Acura's system over this. You look around for a little bit, yeah, it's an Elantra. You've got hard plastics on most surfaces, a few softer areas near the door handle, decent enough sound system, pedals are great, good position for heel towing. Thank you, Hyundai, for having all these hard buttons remaining for the climate control. We've got heated steering wheel, heated seat here. But there's one glaring mistake. I have no idea. This seems so backwards to me, okay? This car is equipped with lane keep assist, okay? If I was on a freeway or any lane with two lines on either side, click this button on the steering wheel and it will steer the vehicle for me. What it doesn't have is radar cruise control. That is insane. Why would you have steering assist but no radar cruise control? So I can set standard cruise control, have my hands off and the car is driving, but I can be coming up very slowly at highway speeds to a car, and I will just tap the bumper of that car on the freeway. And yeah, the Elantra N's not smart enough to slow down before I hit that car. So the Elantra N starts at $39,000 Canadian or 34,000 USD and gets an average of 24 miles per gallon, although after rowing gears over 1,200 kilometers or 750 miles, my average was 29 miles per gallon. On paper, this sounds like your expected Hyundai sedan experience. Great efficiency, tons of rear seat room, and enough cargo space to ditch the city for a weekend. That is, until your surfboard can't slide through the rear seats because you need that additional bright red rigidity. The seats are great. I didn't move an inch, but on longer drives, the GTI is just undeniably more comfortable, both in materials and suspension. That makes sense to me though. The GTI and Golf R both have dropped the manual for 2025, and that leaves a pack of dedicated 6-speed dailies that'll be happy to see some track time. The Elantra N has so much going for it. Torque that hits quickly, great driver feel and feedback, and if you downshift, turn in, and power out at the right time, it's about as rewarding as it gets. For just $3,000 more than a Civic SI, that's an easy decision for me. For just a few hundred more than a base GTI, the decision is a bit less sound, but I'd rather drive the N most of the time. The Type-R and GR Corolla have their own strengths and superior technical achievements, no doubt, but come at a cost. The Corolla is about $5,000 more and the R is $12,000 more. Right there, that's the Elantra N's greatest upside over the competition. It is the greatest value manual sports sedan on sale today. We should definitely do a launch control. The Elantra N has, in the N mode settings here on the menu, a launch control which is adjustable, just like the Veloster N was. So I'm gonna try 3,500 RPM. Clutch down, revs up. Huge amount of wheel spin there. Not bad. As soon as I let off the clutch, I was like, oh, I have grip. So I went full throttle and then it just begun to spin. I feel like maybe a couple hundred more RPM. We'll do 3,700 RPM. Pulling to the right. That one was a lot smoother, but so much wheel spin in first gear. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get it to hook. just enough torque where like we're pulling good. It's not a full burnout, but yeah, so much wheel spin, pulling over to the right. It's the only torque steer I've experienced so far is just in first gear. Whoa, okay, let's abort. Whew. A ton of wheel hop. Lots of wheel spin. Really tough nut to get wheel hop. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.